Chase at the 40. Look at that move. Look at Chase go. Oh, my goodness. What a gear.
He comes down to this in his car, end zone. Intercepted.
McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl.
Boss here. Mixon's going to throw. Open man. Caught. Higgins. Touchdown.
Drives. Touchdown. Joe Burrow has his first rushing touchdown of the season.
Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Mon. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Mon, episode 20 is here. And how fitting is it that for episode 20, we are doing our first real game preview on the Bengals Pulse. I am very excited about this show. It is a very big week. Real quick, Mon, I just got to say it. Once again, my boys pulled out the victory on Friday night. We are now 3-0. I'm very proud of my guys. It was another big win for us against our crosstown rivals. Always good beating your rivals, Mon. So it was a good week. Good week for me. How was your week?
It was great. Congratulations on the win. I was following on my phone. I was at another high school game for work, doing a standby, but I was following the progress of your game. Congratulations. I'm glad you guys won. It was a fun week. I'm really excited about week 1, episode 20. We're actually talking about a real Bengal game. And, I rewatched episode 1 the other day, and we've really come a long way. And I can't wait for the next 20 episodes.
You really have come a long way. That stash is outstanding. Dude, it's outstanding. It is becoming a worldwide phenomenon, this stash. It is going to break Twitter. There's no doubt about it.
It's tough being me. I just want to be an average guy.
All right, Mon, let's oh my God, your room is filling up. We gotta go. We gotta move forward. We got a big show, Mon. We got a lot to talk about.
We sure do.
Another busy week, man. It's like it's so great. There's so much content to talk about. I feel like we just don't have enough time every week when we're on here, and obviously I'm with you too, man. I'm excited about episode 20. I'm looking forward to the next 20 as well. But let's get into episode 20. Mom, before we start previewing this big game on Sunday, let's go over a ton of roster moves since the last time that we spoke. Last time we did our 53-man roster, we talked about it, and we said, Bengal fans, it's not over yet, and it was not over, right? It's almost like Pandora's box just opened up those next couple of days. It went crazy. Real quick, O.J. Howard, he's not going to be a Bengal. Again, some of that was obviously rumors being thrown around. Mon, are you sad?
You know what? I got caught up in the hysteria a little bit. I really wanted him when he was coming out in the draft. But I think the writing was on the wall when they picked up the tight end from the Patriots. And it didn't work out. And I guess he did sign with the Texans, I believe. And, hey, you know what? Maybe next year he'll be a free agent. We can sign him then.
Well, I think they like the guy that they got from waivers. He's younger and more explosive, and not coming off of an Achilles injury too probably had a little bit to do with that. So I like our tight end room too. I kind of got wrapped up in it too because you and I, when that draft came around, I know you and I both spoke about we wanted O.J. Howard, but it is what it is, and I am happy with the tight end room, especially with Hayden Hurst. But let's get into this crazy week. Obviously, really the big news and the news that we all knew was going to happen is, we knew Jesse Bates was back in town, but now the Bengals have made it official. He is now part of the active roster. So that kind of opened up, like I said before, Pandora's box, right? Because the Bengals had to really move that roster around and move the pieces around to get it to fit where they wanted to. But Jesse Bates now part of the active roster, and he'll be starting on Sunday. There's no doubt about that. Our guy, our guy, Alan George, who you and I are such big fans of, and a guy that we were so happy to hear that he made the 53. Alan had a crazy week, but I'm glad to see he was signed back onto the practice squad, but he was waived earlier in the week, but now back on the practice squad. So once again, congratulations to Alan. We are pulling for you, man, and I'm so excited to see your future as a Bengal. Thaddeus Moss, the Thaddeus Moss experiment seems to be over in Cincinnati. He has been released from the practice squad. Mon, we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. The Bengals also waived guard Lamont Gilliard from the reserved injured list. They did an injury settlement with Lamont. They did re-sign quarterback Brandon Allen, safety Mike Thomas, and wide receiver Mike Thomas, safety Mike Thomas. Both the Mike Thomases are back. And running back Travion Williams is also back. I know you're excited about that. You sent us all a text message letting us know that you were right again, when really technically you were wrong, but, we'll let that go. The Bengals play safety Tyson Anderson, offensive tackle Isaiah Prince, defensive end Khalid Kareem, and cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt on the reserved injury list. Mon, they can come back when? Can those guys come back?
I think they're out for 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then obviously we have the PUP list as well. And those guys we talked about earlier on our last episode who are on PUP. Those guys are also 4 weeks, Mon?
I think it's 3 to 4 weeks. I'm not 100% sure. The guys that go on IR, though, there's a 3-week window when the Bengals can activate that. So technically, they have 3 weeks to evaluate them after the 4 weeks.
So it's really sick. It's really like 6 weeks, I thought, right?
Right. It is
6 weeks technically when they can, when there's that room of them bringing them back to the roster.
They have to make a decision after that 3-week window,
right?
To either put them on IR, release them, or put them on the active roster.
Right. Okay. Okay. So makes sense. So Mon, let's talk about those roster moves real quick. You and I, we were, again, I don't want to speak badly about Brandon Allen. I like Brandon Allen, but the idea of Jake the Snake Browning being number 2 was very intriguing to me. And maybe he still will get that opportunity of Brandon Allen back on the roster along with wide receiver Mike Thomas. Again, I don't understand. I know you were going to argue with me about Kendrick Pryor. I don't want to get in the Kendrick Pryor thing again, but if you're choosing Mike Thomas over Kendrick Pryor, I just don't see how that makes any sense, not going with the younger guy that is more talented and more explosive. But Mon, why don't you tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the reserve injury list, the guys that got waived, released, and signed back? What do you think?
Listen, we all, have an affinity for some players in preseason. Browning really impressed me. I said he had a gunslinger mentality. Listen, I think the coaches, when it comes to Brandon Allen, when it comes to Mike Thomas, I think they like the fact, hey, the Bengals Super Bowl window is open. They have this intangibles about them. They're good in the locker room. Joe Burrow really likes having Brandon Allen. He does know the playbook. I think he's a little, I think he's just an average backup quarterback. And I think the Bengals, I've said that many times, that they could do better at that position. Mike Thomas, listen, we'll agree to disagree. Pryor was really dynamic. I wish he was on the practice squad. I'm with you. I bummed me out that he went to the Jaguars, but I think Mike Thomas is right for this team right now. And the Alan George situation, when that broke the other day that he was waived, man, that was a bummer. But I'm so glad he made it back to the practice squad. Listen, I fully expect him to be on the active roster. We had a pretty epic text with Ace and Zim over the backup cornerback situation. And the Bengals are thin back there. If you look at the depth chart that just came out today, Trey Flowers is backing up both cornerbacks.
It's crazy.
He's backing up Cheeto and he's backing up Eli. So the Bengals. I wouldn't be surprised if Alan George gets moved up next week, or he could get moved up Friday. You never know. But they are thin at the cornerback spot, and I fully expect Alan George to play a lot for the Bengals this year.
Well, and again, this is not because I'm a big Alan George fan, but Jalen Davis, absolutely. Let me explain to our listeners real quick what happened with the four-way, our text chat that we have with Ace and Zim, and we talk quite a bit with those guys during the week. All I text was, I'm not going to use the language because I was very upset that Alan George got waived and Jalen Davis was still on the team. All I text was, I can't believe Jalen Davis made this team over Alan George. Mon, I put my phone down for 15 minutes. I pick it back up. There's like 80 text messages. I mean, it took me forever just to get through Ace, Zim, and you and all of your text messages. And then I think after I got through all 80 of them, I text, I just want to reiterate, I can't believe Jalen Davis made this team over Alan George, and then just left it alone. But we did. We had quite the argument / conversation about the Bengals defensive back room right now. I'll be honest, Mon, it's a little bit of a mess. It's very scary to me to think that Jalen Davis could go into an NFL football game for us, a meaningful one. That just terrifies me, to be quite honest. And that's nothing to do with Jalen Davis as a person. He just, I don't know. I haven't seen it in 2 years, so I don't know what the Bengals are seeing.
I like the guy. I listen. He is who he is. He's not an NFL superstar, but he's our slot corner. He's a feisty guy. He's a good special teams player. Again, I think the coaching staff, they're looking at, he has 3 years of NFL experience. He's got that, he started some games. He gives them some veteran, veteran presence back there. Could they do a little better with depth? Absolutely. But I don't really have a problem with Jalen Davis. Now, when it comes to Alan George, I think they should have kept him on the roster in the first place and never waived him. There's other players. They're heavy at other positions. They could have potentially cut somebody. I don't know what's going on with Mitchell Wilcox, if even he's going to play this week. Hobson had a blurb that he might be ready, but he hasn't really practiced. He has an ankle injury. I thought he was going to be a candidate to possibly go on IR, but we'll see. And we got to roll with Jalen Davis as our backup slot corner right now.
Listen, I mean, Dax Hill, right? They got Dax Hill because of his versatility. He could play slot. He can play boundary. I think he will play some boundary, to be honest. He can play safety. There are guys that you can work into that slot position. Alan George, again, is another versatile guy that can play in that slot position. Again, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm glad Alan George is back on the practice squad, but Bengals, put him on the 53. He belongs on the 53. All right, let's talk about the team captains, right? Always interesting to see how this dynamic works every year, and obviously last year the Bengals did a very good job of picking the captains. This year, I'm going to go ahead and list them, Mon. You tell me what you think. Obviously, both Joes, Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Von Bell again, Sam Hubbard, DJ Reader, Mike Thomas, the safety, who was just re-signed, right? That one was kind of odd to me. And then in a very surprising move, something you don't normally see, is a free agent, Ted Karras. Ted Karras is a captain. I mean, he must really have impressed a lot of players and coaches, because that is very hard to do on any NFL team, let alone coming into a situation on a Super Bowl roster with all these great leaders on this football team. To be named captain, that's a big deal, Mon.
Absolutely, it is. I don't have any problem with any of the selections. They're all team players. They're all going to be play a big part in the 2022 Bengals. good selections. It's voted on by the players, and I'm happy with it. And they're all deserving. All deserving.
Interesting though about Mike Thomas, right? I mean, I know Mike Thomas. We're talking about Mike Thomas, the safety. Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas obviously is. By looking at it, he's obviously the special teams captain, right? I mean, I'm looking at this list of captains. You got three offensive guys, three defensive guys, and the one special teams captain who's Mike Thomas. But obviously, that says a lot about Mr. Thomas being the special teams captain too.
Oh, absolutely. I think he in his previous stops, if I'm not mistaken, he made the Pro Bowl one year as a special teams participant. And, the Bengals did waive him early a few days ago, but that was just roster gymnastics. They had every intention on bringing him back. He's a vested veteran. He wasn't subject to waivers. So, they had a little gentleman agreement to come back. But, yeah, they like him a lot. Good write-up by Hobson on him, too. I'm glad he's on the team.
All right. So you're good with the captains. I'm good with the captains. We just really one more real quick thing. We have touched on this quite a bit on this pod about Von Bell and the importance of Von Bell to this football team. And we, when all that stuff was going on with Jesse Bates, you and I both have talked many times about them throwing that contract to Von Bell. I still think that's going to happen. I think Von Bell is going to be a Bengal for a second time around. I think the Bengals, the players, I think everybody thinks very highly of Von Bell, and I think that gets overlooked a lot. This guy has come in right away and really, been the leader that they were expecting him to be.
Yeah, you know what? I hope you're right. I hope it happens. I would love to see a 2-year extension. He's not that old. And listen, he has been a great free agent signing. Listen, we all love our Bengal players, but you know what? With me, there's a handful that I really have like a strong, affinity for, that I really like a lot. Over the years, James Brooks, all these guys. Von Bell is one of those guys. I remember when they signed him, I was so excited. I loved him when he played for the Saints, loved him at Ohio State. And it was a sneaky signing, a little later on in free agency. What a bargain. 3-year, $18 million. And you know what? Listen, add 2 years of that contract. I hope he comes back.
He will.
And that hit on Juju a couple years ago, that transformed this franchise. One play, and I love it. It's one of my all-time favorite Bengal plays.
Well, it's so funny that you bring that up, because that's going to lead us right into our conversation, right? You did that on purpose?
I did.
No? You did. Okay.
I did. It's the mustache. It's the mustache.
It's the mustache.
I'm getting smarter.
Man, that stash is just taking over this pod. Obviously, you and I both love that play. We have it on the intro to our podcast. That play, Mon, has really set up these last 3 games against the Steelers. We have dominated them. I mean, and that's something that we haven't seen for decades, where we have just completely dominated the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that game really started this 3-game win streak. And we'll get into what we think is going to happen this Sunday. But let's backtrack. Let's backtrack to that Monday night game. The Von Bell hit, right? Juju Smith comes out. He TikToks on our logo in our stadium, and that was pretty much the end of that, right?
Yes.
And it really it really started this thing. I really truly believe that one play and that one night has catapulted the Bengals into last year in that Super Bowl run. And I know people are like, no, it's not just one play in one game. But that was a big win without Joe Burrow, right? Mr. Ryan Finley, he throws for 90 yards, but he's efficient, right? He doesn't turn the ball over that game, and has a couple big runs. And the one, obviously, at the end that seals it, I remember it's still all over Twitter, where his face, he's like on the ground smiling. Knowing that he picked up the first down. But the Bengals win that game 27-17. And again, with a team that is banged up, a lot of backups are playing that game. And, that was a big win. Not only was it a primetime win, but against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Hey, Jake, were they an 11-win team at that time, the Steelers?
It was 10 or 11 wins, I believe.
Yeah, they were on a roll. Yeah, I mean, I think they were starting to leak a little bit of oil at that time. But Ryan Finley came in, and that was a rough season for us. But that win really, really absolutely turned things around.
I remember calling you because we didn't get to watch that one together. I remember calling you, and we're going crazy. We had only won like 3 games or something. We're going crazy like we had won a playoff game, just because of, I think that, like you said, the whole atmosphere of it. And Ryan Finley, we couldn't get over that the guy to lead us to that Pittsburgh win in prime time was Ryan Finley.
Yeah, I know, it was great, and like I said, that one hit by Von Bell just set the tone for that game. It totally set the tone, and it was great. And we've won 3 in a row, and hopefully it's going to be 4 in a row come Sunday.
Well, I don't think there's any hopefully about it, but we'll get to that in a minute here. But let's talk about, because this 3-game win streak, Mon, the Bengals have outscored the Pittsburgh Steelers 92-37, Mon.
Yeah.
And again, with you and I going back 40 years as Bengal fans, there were not a lot of those type of win streaks against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that to me, almost 100 points in 3 games is impressive. So let's talk about the first meeting last year. Bengals win 24-10 at Pittsburgh. Burrow throws for 3 touchdowns. Jamar Chase gets 2 of those. Joe Mixon's right around 90 yards rushing. The Bengals pick off Roethlisberger twice in that game, and Najee Harris, right, the wonder, the Pittsburgh wonder. Oh, he is the next, Jerome Bettis and the blah 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 blah. He's held to 40 yards rushing in Pittsburgh, Mon. Let's talk about that first game. What do you think?
You kill me. I love these. It's so, you just want to go for the jugular. I love it. No, that first game was really odd. The Bengals only had the ball 24 and a half minutes.
It's weird.
They
it was
were
a weird
extremely
game.
efficient. And you have to admit something. Since my day, since the 70s, the Steelers have always been good at rushing the passer. They unbelievable sacks. They had 55 sacks last year. Guess how many sacks they had in that game? 0. The Bengals had 5. I think we mentioned it a few episodes back. We were breaking down the AFC North. I think the Bengals' best game, their offensive line last year, their best 2 games of the season were against the Steelers. They played really well, very efficient. Like I said, they only had the ball 24 minutes, and they scored 24 points. Opportunistic defense, those turnovers helped out. But honestly, the score of that game, it wasn't that close, even though they won by 14.
It was weird, right? That game, the flow of that game was weird because you and I never felt like, in the past we've always we're like on the edge of our seat, even when we don't have to be, because we know what can happen with our Bengals. But in that game, I never felt that way last year. I never felt in that game like the Steelers had a chance, right? We dominated them, but the flow of the game was just so odd. Like you said, the Bengals only had the ball 24 minutes. They were efficient, but like you said, very opportunistic in that game. And Joe Burrow, although he did throw an interception that game with the 3 touchdowns, he spread the ball around pretty good as well. And again, we rushed for 90 yards with Joe Mixon. But game 2, Mon, you and I were both at, and that was a great game, right? Because at halftime, you and I, we were sitting on opposite ends of the stadium. But at halftime, you and I called each other like we didn't know what to do with ourselves. The game was already over at halftime. And you and I are like, well, what do you want to talk about? Because, what a first half for the Bengals against the Steelers in that game. Absolutely dominated them. And I remember we're up 24 was it 24-3 or something like that, I think. And we're driving. We're in Pittsburgh territory. Burrow throws a pick. Remember, he throws it to the sideline, and that very average safety that plays for the Steelers makes the interception. I'm not even going to say his name because it's not worth my time. He's not even a top 5 safety, but whatever. He intercepts the ball, and you kind of got that feeling like, oh no, don't let this happen. And then what does our man Mike Hilton do? Pick 6 to end the half, game over, and we get to enjoy the second half just watching us throttle the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's talk about some stats from that game. On 31 points in the first half. Burrow with a touchdown pass and a touchdown run. Joe Mixon, 165 yards against the vaunted Steelers defense with 2 rushing touchdowns. Hilton's pick 6, as I talked about before. T. Higgins, 114 yards and a touchdown. 2 more interceptions against Roethlisberger. And Najee Harris, the scary Najee Harris, with a total of 23 yards rushing. Get out of town with Rookie of the Year last year. Why was he even in the voting, Mon? I don't even understand. In 2 games against the Bengals, Mon, he had 63 yards rushing. 63. We dominated the line of scrimmage, just like you said. Talk about that game too, Mon. That was such a great game.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a bizarro world. The 2 games last year that we played. No, it really was, because let's face it, the Steelers had in 2 games against us last year, they had combined under 100 yards rushing. I mean,
crazy.
Are you kidding me? I mean, that never happens.
Never.
And you're right. I don't get the fascination with Najee Harris. Listen, he's probably going to be a fine player. I mean, what did he do last year? I mean, he had under 4 yards per carry, well under 4 yards, if I'm not mistaken. And, I mean, he just wasn't spectacular. I don't get the fascination. I think it's just a Steeler hype. But no, another thing I remember about that game, the section we were in, everybody was so happy. The guys behind us are buying my boys beer, and they're $12 beers. And my kids are pounding them. And I'm like, hey, it saved me about $75. But everybody was so jovial and happy because it's 31-0. I mean, it was a blowout. And listen, that just doesn't happen a lot to the Bengals when they play the Steelers. And man, that was a fun weekend, buddy. That was so much fun.
Oh, that was a great weekend. Remember, that's the first time we got to hang out with Jeff and at Bengal Jim's tailgate. So just
we got to meet.
I
got to meet TJ Hushmanzada that weekend too. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, you were at what's the restaurant?
It was one of the downtown restaurants. I think it was the Yard House.
Oh yes, yeah. We ate there the following day. I think. Didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, remember too that same weekend. You really dropped the ball on this. I think if you would have had your stash then, you and I would have had our picture with Zach Taylor, right? Because Coach Taylor, let me tell our listeners what happened. I'm still mad about this, Mon. Mon is Mon and I are going to meet at the pro shop in Paul Brown's. Oh well, in Paycor Stadium now, but in Paul Brown Stadium last year. Mon and I were going to meet there. Mon got there a little bit early. I walk into the pro shop. I see Mon. I walk up. Mon has not said anything to me yet, right? Time is passing. Very important time is passing. Mon finally walks up to me after about 5 or 6 minutes, is like, hey, Jake, I think Coach Taylor was just in the pro shop. And by that time, one of the guys that works there walks up to us and is like, yeah, that's him right there. And Coach Taylor is walking out of the pro shop. I look at Mon like, what are you doing, dude? Why did you not say something 5 minutes ago when I walked into the shop?
Okay, hold on. That is true. Okay, everything you said is true. It's
all true.
When I walked in, I was like, wow, check out that handsome devil. He looks like Zach Taylor, all right? But then I overthought it. I'm like, Zach Taylor wouldn't be in the pro shop. If he needs goods, he just calls up somebody and they bring it to him. That's not Zach Taylor.
Not Coach Taylor, baby.
Sure enough, he was in there buying stuff for people. And I was kicking myself. I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe. I mean, why wouldn't you say something to me right when I walked into the shop? He was still in the shop.
I was like, "There's no way it could be him." I said, "Somebody that looks like him," but it was him. It was him. So,
well, that was a great weekend, right? And like you said, it was very. The game was just bizarre because we're not used to the Bengals completely dominating. And I'm going to go back real quick and say something to what you said earlier. I agree. I think those two Steeler games was the best our offensive line played all year. And that, close. I mean, not even close, right? I mean, we completely dominated. The only time in one of those games that the vaunted Mr. Watt touched Joe Burrow is when Joe Burrow was trying to block him, or no, he was trying to block Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow was getting ready to suplex him. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind, Mon, that if Watt would have continued, Mr. Burrow would have pile drived him or suplexed him. There's no doubt. I got Joe Burrow in that one. Joe Burrow's tough, man. Joe Burrow's tough. He's tough. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos of him in college with the tug of war and stuff. Joe Burrow, I'm telling you right now, there's a dog in Joe Burrow. Watt doesn't want any piece of Joe Burrow. None whatsoever. All right. Let's so we're going for 4 in a row. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's no doubt in my mind it's going to be 4 in a row. No doubt at all. But before we get into our picks, let's talk about do you want to start? Do you want to do the Steelers defense first? And then I'll do Steelers offense?
Sure. It don't matter. Yeah, I mean, it's real quick about the Steelers. Listen, I'm not a fan of the Steelers. You know, I can't stand that organization, but I got to give them some respect. I don't know how they made the playoffs last year. I don't know how they made the playoffs. I mean, they were 4-2 in the AFC North. Their 2 losses was against us, obviously. But Mike Tomlin is a good football coach. He got that team to the playoffs. He's a good coach. Listen, I'm not rooting for him, but you have to acknowledge facts. He's a good football. That was a poor team, and he got him to the playoffs.
No,
he got him.
I will never say that. I will never say that. I don't think he's a good coach.
I know. I'm not rooting for him. I'm just acknowledging the fact. I don't know how he did it. The defense. It wasn't a typical Steeler defense. They were last in the NFL in rush defense. They gave up an average of 146 yards a game. That's crazy. Unbelievable. Last in the NFL in rushing. They gave up a total of over 6,100 yards of the defense gave up last year. Saying that, they still had 55 sacks. You know, they have T.J. Watt. They have Cam Hayward. They got one of our guys on the team now, Larry Ogunjobi. They have Miles Jack came from the Jaguars. Devin Bush has been a disappointment. Mika Fitzpatrick, somebody you love, is on the team.
Who is that? I don't know who that is.
Yeah,
who is that?
He's a good player. Whatever. Terrell Edmonds is on the team. He hasn't been, he's been average. He had a couple interceptions last year. They have a lot of talent on that defense, led by Hayward and T.J. Watt. Obviously, 55 sacks is impressive. And the Steelers, that's one concern I have with the game this Sunday. We're going to win, but that offensive line has to gel because the Steelers will bring pressure. They will bring pressure. We just have to adjust. We might struggle in the first quarter, but we're going to win the game. Their leading tackler was Mika Fitzpatrick. He had over, I think, 124 tackles. Terrell Edmonds was like 3rd or 2nd on the team in tackles. Listen, they got a lot of good players. They did struggle last year. It wasn't a typical Steeler defense. They really struggled against the run. I think that had to do with Tua being injured. Tyson Alualu was also injured. But their starting 11 is going to be Cam Hayward, defensive tackle. Larry Ogunjobi, breaks my heart that he's with them. He's going to be playing defensive end also. Tyson Alualu is going to be the other defensive tackle. They play a 3-man front. Of course, T.J. Watt is an outside linebacker. They got Devin Bush, who I remember when they drafted him. Remember that? We were all fired up. I can't believe it. Yeah, we were devastated. I'm glad he's on the team.
Yeah, we wanted him, though.
I know we did.
We wanted him.
When he starts, they're technically playing with 10 players. Miles Jack.
You get on to me about the Minka thing, and then you drop that one. I mean, are you serious?
Mika's a better player than Bush. He is. He is. Miles Jack.
Mon, you're better. You're better linebacker than Bush.
I believe that. I totally believe that.
I
I'm first team
believe
all
that.
Middle East, man. First team all Middle East. Okay. Ahkello Witherspoon, the cornerback, I think he re-signed with the Steelers, and if I'm not mistaken, the Bengals flirted with him in free agency this year. He decided to come back and sign with the Steelers. That would have been great if we signed him, Mike Hilton last year, and then him. That would have been sweet. Ended up
you're
re-signing.
right. I think they did. Yeah.
Yeah, they flirted with him,
Yeah,
and they really wanted to bring him in, but he stayed. Cameron Sutton, I think Arthur Mullet's or nickel corner. Listen, they have some pretty good depth there, and you know what? Listen, it wasn't a typical Steeler defense. They did struggle, but buddy, they can bring the heat. 55 sacks in one season is pretty impressive. And also, yeah, they made a trade with the Broncos. They got Malik Reed. He's a good player. And they got some decent depth back there. Miles Killebrew, Montavious Adams, Chris Wormsley, pretty decent defensive lineman. So, hey, oh, yeah, and the draft pick from Texas A&M, I wanted him, DeMarvin Leal. I was hoping the Bengals would consider him. He's with the Steelers. He's second string. So, the Bengals are going to have to bring their A game because they are going to be putting some pressure on Joe Burrow. But I think our offensive line will be up to it.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing this offensive line for the first time, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of hype and stuff, and you're right, they are going to have to play. Let's move over to the circus known as the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, because unlike their defense, where they have some good, solid players, their offense is a clown show. It is a clown show, and I'm not trying to say that to be funny. I'm not trying to say that because I don't like them. I went through their depth chart and their offensive line. Well, let's get into it. Let's start with their quarterback. Starting at quarterback, the infamous Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, I could just say that name 100 times, Mon, and you would not even flinch once. There's no fear in your eyes. It's probably because of the stash, but there's no fear in your eyes when I say Mitchell Trubisky. And, again, if Mitchell Trubisky doesn't work, we got to be worried because here comes Mason Rudolph, right? Who I think is one of the reindeer. Again, quarterback situation, not very good in Pittsburgh. I think people were, obviously they drafted Kenny Pickett, and people were thinking that the Steelers would make this big splash in free agency to go out and get a solid number one quarterback. But to our happiness and joy, they did not. They went out, they got Mitchell Trubisky. At running back, a guy we've talked about, Najee Harris, who for Steeler fans is the ninth wonder of the world. I'm not sure why or what he's really done to get that title. But Najee Harris, again, he had 63 total yards against us last year. And again, their receiving core, you talk about the clown car pulling up to the circus and the clown door opens and, all these clowns dump out. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiving core. It's just a bunch of clowns. Chase Claypool is possibly the biggest clown in the NFL. And I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, he really is, Mon. He's the only guy I know that could be down by 30 and gets a 10-yard reception and starts dancing. He is just a clown.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. He's good for a 15-yard penalty a game. I agree.
A game, right? Yeah. Their only player that I would say is a solid guy on offense is Deontay Johnson. He is a little banged up, but definitely the best weapon that they have on offense. Had a good year last year. Pat Freiermuth, who he got a late touchdown against us, if I recall, in the game we were at, right? In that second game, he got a late, trash touchdown. He is definitely not like the Steelers tight ends of old, not a guy that we really have to worry about, but I would say an average tight end at best. And then you have the new Najee Harris, right? And that is Mr. George Pickens, who after just an impressive preseason going against guys who are flipping hamburgers now, Mr. George Pickens goes out and he gets 2 pancakes in 3 games. And that's what I have to look at on Twitter for a whole week, is him knocking over a guy, again, that's probably not going to be in the NFL very much longer. And he did have a real good touchdown catch. But he is now their starting receiver, Mr. George Pickens. And then let's get to the offensive line, which I'll be honest, Did you ever see that movie Major League? A classic, right?
Yeah,
I mean, one of the best sports movies of all time.
Yeah.
Although
it is.
Although it is about the Cleveland Indians.
It is good.
But it's a great movie, right? You remember that? You remember that part in Major League in the beginning where the guy's looking at the roster and he says, "Look at these effing guys." You know what I mean? That's exactly the words that came out of my mouth when I was looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line. The only guy that I even have a reckoning of who he is James Daniels. He is their best offensive lineman, the offensive guard. Again, I know I'm coming across like I'm trying to make a joke of this offense, but really, the joke is the offense. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense this year is going to have to play out of its mind to keep the Pittsburgh Steelers in a competitive football game. And again, I'm not just saying that because I'm a Bengal fan and I can't stand the Steelers. This is not a very good roster offensively. It's just not. When you're putting your money on Mitchell Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Chase Claypool, George Pickens, an offensive line that quite possibly, is going to be worse than our offensive line last year. There's just no fear at all. And it's never been like that before, right? I mean, that for us as Bengal fans, we've always stressed about a Steelers offense. And this is possibly the worst Steelers offense I've seen since Bubby Brister.
Louis Lips.
Louis Lips. Yeah, Louis Lips. That's a good one. What do you think about this offense, Mom?
You know what? I agree with you. The offensive line is going to be the weakness of that team. They're going to max protect. They're going to max protect and protect Trubisky on Sunday. Listen, I'm going to disagree with you. I think Pickens is going to have a bright future. He might struggle a little bit at first. Deontay Johnson is a good player. Freiermuth, decent. Najee Harris doesn't scare me because that offensive line's not going to help him. It's saying that I still think it's going to be a close game, closer than I want it to be. The Bengals are going to win. And the only reason I say that, we're going to talk about our predictions in a minute. The Bengals offensive line, that first team unit's going to have a little bit of rust. And it's going to be an adjustment period for them, but they're still going to win the game.
Mon, before we get into our picks, I just want to say this. I love you like you're my own brother. But your opinion when it comes to wide receivers, there's just not a lot of good history there, Mon. And I bring up Cody Core. I bring up Cody Core. Listen. I bring up Cody Core, and Cody Core. I'm rooting for you, man. But Mon, do you remember when you told me the same thing about Cody Core that you're telling me about George Pickens right now? I'm sorry, Mon.
Cody Core was a late draft pick. I like Cody Core. I developed an affinity for him. Okay, he was my Kendrick Pryor. Okay.
Oh no! Don't do that. I'm keeping this receipt. Don't do that.
Cody Core was a okay player for the Bengals. Listen, Pickens. Let me just say this real quick.
When the preseason ended, Kendrick Pryor had a higher rating than Mr. George Pickens.
Man, let's put the guy in the Hall of Fame. Come on.
All right, let's let's get to our picks, Mom, before we get out of here. So what we're going to do every week, listeners, is we're going to pick the AFC North games and give our scores, right, Mom?
Yes.
So here we go. Let's start out with the Cleveland Browns and the return of the man for the Carolina Panthers, right? All of this whole circus that has gone on in Cleveland in the offseason. And now we get a chance to watch the man who was in the middle of it all, who kind of got overlooked and passed over, is coming back to play the Cleveland Browns with the Carolina Panthers. Mon, what's your pick?
You know what? I'm going to go with the Panthers, and I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be 26-13 Panthers over the Browns. Listen, week 1 in the NFL, it's really hard to figure out what's going on. All the teams are really fired up to make a good impression. Remember a few years ago, the Bengals, they had a bad season, but they went to Seattle playing a really good Seattle team. They should have won that game. They should have won that game, and the wheels, fell off. The Bengals are struggling a little bit. You never know what's going to happen week 1. I really think
that was a John Ross game. Remember?
Yeah, that was his best game of his career.
We were like, finally we got John Ross. John Ross. And then by week 3 we're like, oh, John Ross is in the game.
That was a great game, even though it was a loss. But I think the Panthers are going to win comfortably. I think it's going to be 26-13. It's going to be a rough start for the Browns. I feel really comfortable with that pick.
I'm with you. I think the Panthers dominate this football game. I have the Panthers beating the Browns 24-10. I think this Cleveland Browns offense is just going to struggle. I think it's going to be one-dimensional, and I think NFL teams are going to take advantage of that. All right, here we go. The Ravens start off with a tough one against the New York Jets. Mon, what's your pick?
Again, like I said, week 1, it's tough. On paper, the Ravens should handle them. It's not going to happen. The Jets are going to win in New York 24-21. Coach Salah is going to have his team ready to play against the Ravens. Ravens start 0-1. I feel really comfortable. I'm not trying to be a homer. I really think it's going to happen.
Listen, I agree with you. Mon. Do you have a robot living in your house?
Sorry, the Alexa's going off reminding my wife to take her vitamins. Okay, I apologize.
You got a robot? I didn't know you had a robot.
It's just, we're old. Right. We need reminders.
All right, Lay. I also have the Jets winning this football game. I have the Jets beating the Ravens 21-17. Listen, I think there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes in Baltimore right now, and I think there's a very fluid situation going on at the quarterback position. They're banged up at running back. They're scrambling to try to find a running back like they did last year. I agree. I think the Ravens get beat by the New York Jets 21-17. All right, let's go to the one that matters, the only one that matters. Mon. Bengals, Steelers. You and I are going to be there. So you better be right about this, Mon, because we're going to be broadcasting afterwards, and I'm going to let you hear it if I hear any nonsense coming out of that stash right now. Mon, what's your pick?
I got the Bengals winning. I think the score is going to be 21-13. It's going to be a little closer than we want it to be.
What?
Listen, our team, that offensive line needs the gel. The Steelers are going to bring the kitchen sink. We're going to run the ball. It's not going to be a blowout, but we win. And Bengals start 1-0 in first place in the AFC North.
Mon, don't try to sugarcoat it.
I'm not.
You're being crazy.
We're going to win.
The Bengals will have 21 points in the first half, at least. Mon, again, for our listeners, let me just tell you, you're going to see this over this entire upcoming season. Every week, Mon tries to keep the games close because he doesn't want to overreact. And I understand that, Mon. You've been doing that for as long as I've known you. Mon, this game is not going to be close. Again, Bengals will win this game 38-10. This game will be over at halftime, just like it was last year.
I'll take it.
I know you will. And you're also going to hear it after the game is over. Mon, this Bengals football team this is not the Bengals of the past, Mom, where we have to worry that the Bengals are going to underplay. This is a game that I think the Bengals, coming off of that Super Bowl loss, there's a chip on this team's shoulder. They are going to come out and they are going to be firing on all cylinders. Everybody's worried about Joe Burrow not playing the preseason. Joe Burrow didn't need to play the preseason. Those guys don't need to play the preseason. They just played a Super Bowl not too long ago. This football team is going to come out and they're going to make a statement. They're going to win 38-10, Mon. And once again, you and I are going to be in the stands having a good old time at halftime and not having to worry about the second half. All right, listeners, drop in the comment section what you think the score of our Bengals game is going to be this Sunday. Once again, guys, if you liked this podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, and share it. Make sure you check us out on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify, and all the podcast platforms. Again, guys, if you enjoyed listening, please give us that 5-star review. We would very much appreciate that. Follow us on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9 and on Instagram the same without the at Bengals_Pulse9. Once again, guys, if you have any questions or anything you'd like us to talk about on the podcast, make sure you put that in the comments as well. And as always, make sure you check out all of the awesome podcasts in the Wincinnati Podcast Family Network. Our guys Ace and Zim putting together a show after show after show, and we are rocking and rolling. Guys, also, real quick before we get out of here, remember our giveaway this Sunday for this awesome Ken the Rattler. He is this bobblehead is awesome. It is awesome. Again, Mr. Ken Riley getting into the Hall of Fame finally, and we are excited to give this away to one of our awesome listeners. To get entered in, you either have to be following the podcast now on Twitter or go ahead and follow us now. You got a couple days left before we give this awesome bobblehead away. Mom, the next time we're on the Bengals Pulse, we are going to be in Cincinnati for game one. I'm sure we're talking about how we're going to do it, guys. We are going to do an after game podcast. We might even do some live Twitter stuff as well. It's going to be an exciting weekend. Mon, I'm excited. I know you're excited. It's going to be a fun time. Once again, guys, another edition of the Bengals Pulse. He is Mon. I am Jake.
Guys.
We'll see you in Cincinnati, Bengal fans. Hoo day.
Bye-bye.